Hey, it is 3 o'clock Eastern time, 12 noon for one of our guests on the call with us today. I want to thank everybody for joining and hopping in for today's webinar. I think it's going to be extremely interesting and going to be a little bit different approach than what you've seen from us in the past. So we have affectionately nicknamed this the Trailblazer series. We've got a guest from the industry, but outside of TrueTrack, we brought in especially for this conversation on digital leads, digital marketing, so you guys can get some information from. And what we've got is our usual host, myself. We have Chris Martin on our accounting team, Clayton Thompson on our project manager, and a very special guest, Mr. Jacob Berry. Jacob comes to us from the Dealership Fix It podcast, and he also has motohunt.com. Jacob, give us a little intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what we hope to tackle today.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys having me on. I've got a big experience with the power sports industry. I don't want to really give my resume, but much like the people on today's webinar, it's a lot of years, being successful in it for a big group, right? And so what we're doing now is, we're doing a lot of great stuff. We've got a couple companies that help dealers in certain areas. Much as the one that is our topic today, which is all about the digital advertising side of it and kind of going down those strategy holes, right? So yeah, I have a little podcast called Dealership Fix It. It's a little bit of labor of love. I typically will also bring on people to interview them about their companies or their skills or their experience, all power sports driven. We don't really get into any other verticals. Maybe that's my own fault. I'm just a big fan of power sports and motorcycle dealerships and how they operate around the country. But that's our main focus right now, is working with those types of dealers.
Awesome. Jacob, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. For
Thank
the
you.
rest of you on the call here, some quick housekeeping. Remember that on the webinar, we'd love for your participation in the chat and also in the Q&A. We've got Jacob on here all the way to the end. So as questions come up, things you want us to cover, please get them posted in there. Clayton's going to make sure that we get all of those mentioned and answer any questions that we get. We also want to remind you that another one of our emails went out. So if you at your dealership did not see the latest email talking about some of the metrics within TrueTrack and asking you to log in, please let us know. We want to make sure that everybody is receiving them as they go out. And lastly, don't forget that we are more than just the analytics company. We also do have the coaching and obviously dealer education, which is why we've asked guests like Jacob to come on board. If you have additional questions about TrueTrack or you want information on how to get a hold of Jacob or anybody else, scan the QR code there, set up a time to chat, and we will get to work immediately with you. So that is cool. Today we're going to tackle some questions, right? What are those questions? Well, here's some of them, right? We're going to answer what are some digital marketing strategies and what's most effective for power sports dealerships? How can dealerships use digital marketing to generate leads? And what are some common digital marketing pitfalls? And how can dealers avoid them? And I'm actually super curious when we get to that part to hear some of the things that Jacob has learned and dealers have learned, he's worked with about that. So I want to open this up here right in the beginning to our first, our first survey question. While you're answering this survey, I also want you, anybody who is on TrueTrack, to log in, go to the department deep dive, and find where there is a line for internet leads. We're going to show you shortly where that is, but see if you can find it on your own before we get there. So our first survey, digital marketing channels. What's the dealership's current
Mine
top?
says I can't vote. Jeremy, what's up with that? I want to vote too.
Oh, yeah, we log out the panelists because we're going to let them have an opinion anyways, Jacob.
Well, I'll be interested to see what the results come back as with the number one answer. Can I just call out while we're waiting for the survey to close? You had a screen share there that talked about margin, and this is in your dashboard, one of the KPIs, right? One of the things that you show to dealers and spotlight them, right? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to try my best for all the dealers listening to this to tie that in to everything that we're doing, because that's really, at the end of the day, all we really care about, right? Is what am I selling and how much money am I making on it, right? And so this digital advertising will hopefully get you to that point much more efficiently, right? With some meaning behind it, and be able to do it in volume.
That is a great point. It is a great point, because that's what matters. How much money we're making at the end of the day.
I love that.
All right. Survey results. What we got? I'm super curious.
Can you all see the results or no?
No,
Nope.
no,
Yeah.
they're not posted up. You can tell us who the winner was. That's fine.
Oh, there we go.
No. Should be
Oh,
good.
here we go.
Facebook and Instagram. Oh, that's just so interesting. So nobody's doing email marketing or organic SEO,
Well,
and
this
only
is a
one vote for Google Ads. Interesting.
top digital marketing channel. So
Does that
I'm
mean that?
going to guess that that would be their primary focus if
Okay.
I'm understand that. Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Well, let's get into it. I'll start with the most popular, the one, Facebook and Instagram. And I'm curious to know that, almost as a quasi follow-up question to that, is what kind of top digital marketing channel advertising are you doing on Facebook and Instagram? Because if it is just boosting a post, which Facebook loves to promote to people who have a credit card, it's probably not working effectively, right? And so if this is the organic stuff, great. You guys need to be doing that. That's more of an organic strategy. The paid stuff is really kind of where the rubber meets the road for scalability, right? And so, we figured out a long time ago that really the only thing that customers care about, even at the higher awareness level of Facebook and Instagram, they only really care about the products that you sell, right? And then what kind of personality or brand that you have attached to those products that you sell. And so that's kind of an interesting thing that everybody seems to be doing a little bit of, but they're just maybe not sure about the different ways that you can do it, and there are many.
It's an interesting point. And yes, I did see in the chat we did ask for your top digital marketing channel. So we got a little excited, right? With things that are completely missing. So apologies. Um, Chris, do you want to take us through real quick
Sure.
where we can find that spot to put in our digital lead count?
Yeah,
Or
so
internet lead.
every month you upload your data, and there are also some things you have to put in besides that. And one buried down very deep, and I'm just going to walk you to where it is so you'll know. But you go up there to data tools and click on the data center. And then when on the left there, you'll see enter counts. Many of you have already done this. Under new units, buried way over on the side, or maybe it's way down low, depending on how you have your screen set up. There are a whole bunch of miscellaneous counts, and I'm going to zoom in on those. There's a whole series here of, you could call it a traffic log, everything except the bottom line. And it's basically your sales funnel, where the more door swings you can get, hopefully, the more deliveries you get of your product. But then buried down at the very bottom there is internet leads. And that is very innocuous. That's one line, but that's what Jacob is an expert in. He knows this is so oversimplified. He's cringing, I'm sure. But this is
I
what
am.
we're talking about this session.
It
Yes,
is
yes.
it's interesting because I'm like internet lead should be up with door swings, right? Because that's like a digital door swing, if you will,
Yeah.
coming in. And then what do we do with it, and how does it work? And the bigger thing is, like, if you're not tracking it, let's talk about that. If you do not know what your internet leads are, and I'm going to say daily, like, where are you at this point in the month for internet leads? How do you know if what you're doing is doing anything? And Jacob, if I'm off base with that statement, please reach through the screen and give me a little but
Jeremy,
I see it as that important.
I think you've got a good point. Like, if you're not tracking, yes, this minor addition to your docs here that you track something is way better than nothing, right? Now, maybe I've just been doing this for too long, or I really nerd out about it, but I split that internet leads line up into several, right? And I really try to dial in. Here's why, is that almost 88%, right? So 8 out of 10 people start their journey with your business, or their buying journey, online. So technically everybody, in my mind, almost damn near, is an internet lead. It's just whether they chose to engage with you through those digital doorways before walking into your showroom, right? We always had the joke that when we would look at our CRM source results, right? Like, where are my ups coming from, right? And usually every CRM or every traffic log has a little place to, how did they hear about us, right? Our number one for almost a decade with the largest group in the country was drive-by, right? Drive-by was our number one source. You mean to tell me the millions of dollars that we spent annually in all these different events, online, in store, it was always they just got to the showroom because they were randomly driving by? No, that's not right, right? So we really took an effort to kind of understand that sourcing a little bit more incrementally and split those hairs. Now, real quick, just to kind of go on a tangent here, I believe that there are 4 opportunity types, and they all should be at the very top of this funnel. And we break it down, we chunk it down into 4 major ones. Internet leads is the first one because usually that's your most volume, right? You'll probably get more internet leads than you will any of the other types of opportunities coming to a dealer now in 2025. And they're all electronic, which means most of the time you don't have to log anybody. They just, if they're set up correctly, they just end up in your CRM or on a spreadsheet somewhere that you can kind of make a quick count, right? But the next one would be a phone up, right? Phone ups are still a very, very relevant way that customers are communicating digitally, of course, because they have to look up your phone number or click on something from their mobile phone and then the phone starts ringing, right? That's a huge, huge important fact that not a lot of dealers are spending the most time on. And I urge everybody on this call, if you're a dealer manager, operator, whatever your position may be, is to test your own store and call yourself, right? And see what happens when you ask for sales or for service or parts, any department really. I'm sure you'll be quite disappointed at the results unless you have a real good process. But the other ones would be showroom ups. So showroom ups are split outside of those. You can technically, add that as a greet, right? They came in, they were looking at something and a salesperson talked to them. But the other one would be a campaign, right? And campaign is anything that is event-based, anything that's outreach, not incoming. And those are really the 4 that sum it up. Internet leads, phone calls, you got showroom ups, and then you got campaign, which is kind of the catch-all if it's not one of those 3. How do you guys feel about that?
I think it's awesome, and it really does show there are multiple different ways and the importance of, and I've heard different stats, and I know it is 80+% to know that many people are starting online before they even head in. And if they do head in, and I do chuckle at they were drive-bys, because I remember the store I was running, we literally would have 150 or so UTVs parked out in front of the store. It was an old car lot, and people would ask where we were, and we would have to say across the road from the diner, because they didn't know that we existed in downtown with all these machines. So it's interesting how we take the path of least resistance for sure. But yeah, it is super important, and I want you guys all to take that away of, at the very least, give us the basic, right? But you'd really want to start paying attention to, where are you spending your money on? What is working and who you're reaching out to? So getting into strategies that work. Jacob, we've got a couple bullet points here that I'm going to rattle off to you. Local SEO, Google Business Profile, which I've heard some interesting things there of how some dealers have never actually even gone in and completely set it up. And so does it work the way that it could or it should, right? But paid search and social ads, email campaigns, like you just talked about, right? Content marketing, social engagements. But my biggest thing is, like, what's out of all those different things you just talked about, those 4 buckets, if you will, where are the most common, I don't know if they're mistakes or pitfalls or things that you see, I don't know, dealers get sucked down a rabbit hole that don't really help, if you will, versus, what they should concentrate on?
Yeah, definitely your website would be number 1, right? Before you start going into paying a professional, or you doing it yourself, or paying for ad clicks, that drive traffic to this website that you want the customer to go to, make sure you got your house in order first, right? And this can be anything from updating your homepage or making sure that your staff doesn't have ex-employees on it. But most importantly, your inventory is nice and tight. There's a little guide. Oh, we lost the screen share here, Chris. But there's a little guide that I wrote a long time ago, and it's a comprehensive guide that says 4 ways on how you can merchandise your inventory even faster for higher retail, right? So it's very important to kind of have your product ready to go to be purchased even before you start down this road, right? You mentioned Google My Business or just Google Business now. They got rid of the MY in the name. But that is the second best, thing that you can do as a dealer today that doesn't take a lot of effort and is kind of super easy to manage. We see more clicks organically from the dealer's Google My Business site coming to the website more than anything. And what that shows is that there's a lot of local intent, right? I know some of our other, third-party providers, they'll send us leads from all over the country, national leads, but really it's your local base that makes up most of your customers. And Google My Business is the best place for attracting, with a good listing, the most clicks that you'll ever get. But you got to complete the profile. You have to be receiving testimonials and reviews, 5-star reviews, and you will rank a little bit better when somebody is searching those needs in a local type of search, right? Like motorcycle dealer near me or Kawasaki dealer near me, right? You insert one of your brands, insert one of your, motorcycles, ATVs near me. That's where Google My Business starts to really, really, really drive a lot of traffic to your website.
That's interesting because I had a dealer not long ago in one of our peer groups that was shocked because they found out that their Google listing, right, said that they were listed as automotive. And he's like, it doesn't sound like it's that big a deal, but those are the types of things you're missing out on, right? If someone's searching for a motorcycle dealer and you're listed as automotive, do you necessarily come up, right? And so he was mortified with himself that he hadn't paid attention to go in and click off all the things to create a good profile, to get what he needed. And it's free, right? You just go set it up. So that's a big one there. I want to move to content marketing a little bit, right? And from a dealer perspective, I follow your stuff, right? So I know that you know how to do content marketing, right? But when I see dealer feeds like Facebook feeds and even Instagram feeds, they're so similar. There's a lot of like OE advertisements in it, right? And almost like, and maybe they are third-party marketing companies, right, that are sending these things down the pipe. Like, how do you differentiate? What have you seen dealers do that work to be different or to get an actual good result from content marketing?
Yeah, this is where the new guard starts to take over from the old guard, right? Some of these dealers that are really killing it on digital, on social media, they have a great content strategy and they're always trying new things. Unfortunately, for the people who don't quote unquote like social media or don't participate in it, you're at a loss. I mean, that's just the simple fact about it. Let's frame this a different way. For anybody that's doing their own investments, right? You typically have a retirement fund that would, at best practices, contain a portfolio, right? A portfolio of different things depend on risk, right? The stock market is all over the place right now. And, you can't really just, rely just on stocks, right? You got to have some bonds, you got to have some mutual funds, you got to have a little bit of this or that, right? Think about your strategy online in the same type of light, right? There are little bits and pieces of everything that you really need to do, content being one of them, against the entire project of promoting yourself and getting your brand out there and your local echoing of your messaging, right? And so that's kind of one way to think about it. Like, don't focus just on one thing. You got to have to kind of do a little bit of everything and have some things that work for you and others that might not, but you try it all, right? Now, content these days, I think that customers are just looking for some personality, right? I remember when I started with Facebook way back in the day and running the camera for the store's Facebook account, we used to post people that just purchased a vehicle, right? And then all of a sudden, all the dealers started copying that, and that was a thing. Now they ring the bell at Harley-Davidson dealerships, and I mean, every kind of brand or culture has their own little thing that they do, right? But as long as you're out there kind of showing who you are as a business, and again, I'm assuming that most of the time we're talking to Powersports dealers on these webinars. I mean, the lifestyle that we are servicing is a fun one. And so customers want to also know that you're going to be providing that same fun experience, and they might follow you a little bit, and that would turn into a deal later on, right? Once that trust is built online. So consistency and trying new things are the best two things that I can tell you when it comes with creating new content in the video form, in the audio form, in the written form, graphics, all that stuff applies.
Yes. It's awesome. And I'm gonna steal a term from John Green. I think you know who John Green is, from Lead Helm, where he used to use the term recreation, right? We sell recreation, we recreate, and to break it down into recreate, right? The recreation of memories and having a good time. And I sometimes feel that as dealers, right, when we're in this doing it every day, we forget that's what we're actually selling, right? It's not just a four-wheeled vehicle to go have fun with. It's the memories that we make that we do. So awesome. Clayton, can you give me another
real
poll?
quick, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So John Green at Leadhelm, right? I heard him say once, since we're going to, exchange blow for blow on John Green statements here. The one that really resonated with me is our industry is the holy trinity of difficulty, right?
Mm.
They're hard to purchase. They kill people. And I forgot what the other one is now, but it's like, man, yeah, we really have an uphill battle when it comes to the products that we sell, right? I think the other one was not a lot of people use them anyways, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
and so,
Yep.
he said that to a group of dealers, and you saw some light bulbs go off, and it was like, wow, we're in it every day, and this is our livelihoods and our businesses and our families are usually wrapped up in them, but the consumer looks at it in a completely different light.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do wonder as a consumer, right? When I consume social, I'm looking for something. I'm looking for entertainment. I'm looking for something to catch my eye or something to make me pay attention, right? And you just blow by the things that don't do that, and I do
Absolutely.
think it's easy to get sucked into that. So that's a great point, John Green. Clayton, can we get our second poll question? So how confident are we in our current digital marketing strategy?
So
Define strategy, please.
Define strategy. A, do you have one? Meaning, an idea, a plan. And what am I doing? Even what am I doing? What am I spending? And what do I expect to happen when I do it? Right. That's how I would describe it. Please, if I've missed something, throw it out there.
That's pretty clear.
So Jacob, I would ask you a question, especially based off the first survey where social media was the top choice for most of the dealers.
Mhm.
We're pretty familiar with dealers not using Google My Business or not updating it. What, how does a dealer, let's say a dealer does a great job at social media. How do they make sure that the people looking and engaging with their content and following them are local to their market and are likely buyers? Because if I'm great as a dealer in San Diego, but I have a large following in New England, they're probably not going to buy from me.
Yes. Well, there is not a way to safeguard that, right? If you're talking social media that is open to the entire planet Earth, anybody has with an account can follow you. So you don't really have any moats or safeguards to say, I only want people in San Diego. Now, you as the content provider, content creator, even if we're, kind of calling it that, everybody's a content creator. We are creating content right now, the four of us with this webinar. Is that you would start to say the who, the why, and the how and the what, right? So in the first sentence of every video, you say, hey, local San Diego riders, motorcyclists, ATV riders, right? And you start using that messaging in all your content. And just by osmosis, maybe that, the people who will follow you are the people that you are talking to as an audience directly.
That's fascinating. Okay.
That is
That
cool.
would be my thought on it. Now, however, if you are obtaining lists, if you're generating leads, if you are doing other ways to create your herd, right? Dan Kennedy, a famous marketer, creator of the magnetic marketing, he had always hammered into people, you have to create your herd, right? You have to message to your herd. And what he's talking about is you maintain a list of people, right? We're always chasing that new lead, but not every new lead is going to sell. Let's just take some standard closing rates, somewhere about 10%, if we're being gracious. Well, that also means that you have a 90% unclosed rate, if you want to call it that in reverse. So what do you do with out of 100 leads, what do you do with the 90 that didn't sell? Well, you have to keep them in your lists and you have to segment them and you have to communicate to them very differently. Do you think that an ATV buyer would want to see a sales special about an on-road motorcycle? Probably not. You could argue that they are the same customer in a lot of cases, but that wasn't their intent when they originally built this initial relationship with you. So we can get real nerdy into the weeds that can apply to the digital marketing strategy. Who is our customer and how are we going to speak to them in the multitude of ways that we are able to now: text and email and call and chat and all that other thing, right?
Yeah.
But that's part of the overall strategy, right? And having a thought out process for each little avenue it can go. This is a
That
difficult business, gentlemen,
if
right? This is hard. It's not easy.
there is nothing easy about it. Wow. All right. So somewhat confident. I wonder what somewhat confident would mean. Meaning we're getting the results we're shooting for. We're within the budget that we thought we would spend. Like I wonder what that would be, but it's good you're at least somewhat confident. I think that is good.
It's good. It's better than not confident.
It is very much better than not confident. So, Jacob, I want to talk about lead generation tactics, and you just hit on a few things, right? But we did in the very beginning, it might have been before we opened the panel up, we were talking a bit about dealer websites, and you brought up the dealer website and how I think it's probably the most overlooked portion of what they do. Um, and you hit on that earlier, but one of the things that drives me crazy about dealer websites is there's only a couple different providers, so there's a lot of them that look very similar to each other. But then the call to actions, right, or the lead forms, the pop-up buttons, I'm not talking about the pop-up that just pops up and says, give me your contact info for a $250 rebate or whatever that is, right? That's one way. But I'm talking about when you find a vehicle and you click on it and you click on get a price, and it's the same pop-up that you just turned off, right? That you just declined to do. And so I'm curious what, your thoughts on landing pages at work, but just what other types of lead generation, lead magnets, and how we put those together into, call it a CRM for lack of a better, but an aggregator, right? To put it all in one spot and be able to do something with not only the ones that just came, right, but the ones that came yesterday that we tend to forget about.
Yes. Yes. The CRM, the customer relationship management software tool. Hopefully you guys have one. That is the nucleus. That's all. I've always maintained that the CRM is the middle of everything that comes into it in terms of like sales opportunities, right? So I'm glad that you asked that question the way that you asked it, because yes, you do have a lot of different places that you can generate leads from. And let's just quickly run down the list. Your website should be and is probably number one, right? But even your website has a multitude of different types of forms. You could do a get quote, as you said. There's finance applications. They're doing trade-in evaluations. They're doing calculate my payment. They're doing a general contact us. Most of the website providers out there, they'll have a form for a parts contact or a service contact, right? So even within your own website, what did I just say? About 8 different types of forms that all are different from each other. In my mind, a trading guy is not the same as a get financed guy. They could be at one point, but that's not where the customer chose to enter his information, right? So that you have to understand that there's a different type of intent on every type of form that you receive. Now, the ones outside of your website, you can go with the second best, which would be anything that is third-party related. So motohunt.com is a lead provider because we list your inventory and we generate leads there for dealers, similar to Cycle Trader, Auto Trader Specialty, right? We can run down the list of third parties where they take your inventory, post it on their website, and generate leads for those dealers and then send it to them, right? So that's another piece. You can also generate your own native leads, right? So on a lot of these platforms now, being Google ads or Meta ads, they have their own form fills. And you can, if you're savvy enough as a marketer, or if you hire an agency that knows how to do these things, you can run an ad, or you can run a form rather right from the ad. So if you're looking at a nice, sexy video of some guy riding a motorcycle and, boom, get one today, and it says click here, you guys have probably filled one out in your time. That can come right to the dealership, right? So there's a multitude of ways that you're generating all these quote unquote internet leads, but you do have to kind of look at them as a subsource rather, right? All the different ways that they're coming in, how they're labeled, and then the closing percentages based on those, right?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question was, so we've got about 8 different ways that you just rattled off that we can gain these leads, right? Garner these leads. What happens to all these leads if we don't get to them in a timely manner? And I would like you to define a timely manner, right? Like what would the difference in ROI, or even I'm going to throw out margin. I don't expect an exact answer on margin, right? But what's the difference between hitting a lead super quick and hitting a lead 3 days later? What's the difference mean to my business?
Well, Jeremy, I mean, this is the softest of softball questions you've asked yet, right? So obviously quick would be the answer, right? What is quick, though, I think is what your real question is. So as a general rule, and by the way, I ran call centers way back in the day for motorcycle dealerships. And so we were all about this. This was like metric number 1 that we looked out of everything, right? Before we even talked to this person, how quickly did we ring the phone, right? And there was always a timestamp, and we'd average out at the month, and we go, okay, it took us, this much amount of time for all of it as an average response time for the month, right? But let's say one gets lost, and it takes 24 hours or something to stop the clock, quote unquote, and screws up your whole monthly average. It's terrible. But either way, what we always came to was 15 to 30 minutes during business hours. Okay. Now that's that's a human being touching that customer is what that means, right? I am very much a fan of automated responses, and for multiple reasons, but my top one would be it just lets the customer know that whatever form they filled out that the system on the other end receiving it says, yep, we got it. Someone will be in contact, right? So an auto response, it doesn't count towards a first touch, but it should be the first touch the customer receives. And whether that comes from your website provider or more, preferably your CRM or even a human that can do it and say, hey, we got your lead. We'll be back with you during business hours. Okay. Most of the dealerships that we work with are closed on Sundays and Mondays. And typically when they walk in on Tuesday morning, they have an avalanche of leads to get to, right? All those should be sitting there waiting for you. I would probably work backwards. But here's the fact that we're trying to sum up with all of this, right? If you're not contacting your customers with a quality response in a reasonable time period, your competition will. It's just as easy as that. If you would sit there as a business owner and assume that your customer only sent a lead to you and no one else, you would be mistaken, because shoppers nowadays are very unlimited in how many requests that they put out there in a very short amount of time. I'm sure we've all done it with various products in our lifetime, looking for quotes or buying the things that we want online. We can do several in a matter of minutes. Your customers are doing the same thing as well. So quickliness with timeliness, quality responses is my answer.
And it is a great answer. It is a great answer, right? Because I use my own buying experience. Like, I get super hot, super cold, super quick, right? So if I want it, I want it now. And if it means I have to talk to somebody, that's fine. But if you don't want to talk to me in the moment I want to talk about it, then I'll just be like, okay, cool, I won't buy it, And I think there's a lot of people that are like that. There's obviously a lot of people that buy different, but it does go into so common pitfalls, right? We've got a few things listed, but it sounds like the biggest thing that could really hurt the most is a weak follow-up process, right? If we're not doing a good job of being able to reach out to all this effort that we've done for digital marketing, would probably be the biggest problem. Not measuring success, and that was actually the number one thing on this last survey, right? Your biggest digital marketing challenge was tracking results. Is there a simple way to track results? Because I don't do it, so I don't know, but I'm going to bet the answer is no, it's not simple.
It is not simple. We, with the digital component to our retail stores, it's a hodgepodge of different strategies, right? So let's break it down into local mom and pop versus e-commerce, right? Powersports and automotive, for that matter, and RV, whoever, right? In this type of vertical, we always kind of straddle that line because we want the online visibility, because we're able to amplify it so much more and get so much more for our dollar and effort online. But ultimately they have to do the deal in person under our rooftop, right? So it's kind of a weird mixing of these two worlds, e-commerce, getting all the leads or purchases if you want. And then, we have to finish it here this way. So that inherently makes the process difficult for the customer, right? Let me say it like this. The pitfalls are only identifiable if you can identify them, right? So a lot of people don't know what they're doing wrong if they don't know what they're doing wrong. Right. And so it doesn't take a lot for a guy like me to come in and say, well, what about this and this and this? And maybe the dealer doesn't have an answer for it. You know what? If you're running a store and you've got multiple departments and you got employees and you got inventory and all these plates spinning, as they say, maybe tracking is at the very bottom of your list of how you got that lead or sold them. I understand that. What you can do is you can delegate a little bit to your time, a little bit to your time to somebody else. And what I really mean by that is that when we emphasize that digital is a powerful and important part of our business, let's put some human resources to it, right? And if I were to ask every dealer on here, you were to take another poll, how many salespeople do you have versus how many digital salespeople do you have? I bet you it would sway 90%. Well, I have all sales guys, but they sometimes answer the leads, right? So if we're thinking about it in terms of how we serve the customers when they first reach out to us, you only have an option of a sales guy that roams the floor and is only a good closer in person to call that guy whenever he can. That's not a very good process. And we know that traditionally sales guys will just kind of click the button to get through it so that they can go have a smoke break, right? So, having a person dedicated to it and then following an outline of what you want that person to do is the best strategy. Call those workflows, right? On day one, you make a phone call. And if they don't answer, call back in an hour, right? Send an email, send a text. That's just day one. On day two, if I didn't get in touch with them, we do X, Y, and Z. On day three, we do this, and so on and so forth. The one that I designed for my prior company is strictly a 21-day human being intervention, meaning I want a human for 21 days, not 21 days in a row, within a 21-day time period, kind of broken up over 10 different time periods, is to reach this customer before I let them go. Meaning I'm not going to invest in having a human keep following up after the 22nd day. We'll let our email newsletters handle it from there, or our retargeting ads on Facebook, right? We'll try to re-engage that customer through other means if they were unresponsive to our leads, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. When I do coaching with dealers, I always call it when does it in your program, right? In your process, when does it go from a lead to a marketing lead, right? Does it go to a sale from a sales lead to a marketing lead? And if it's 30 days old, I'm here to tell you it's a marketing lead now. It's no longer a sales lead, at least not in the way that it came in. So it's a great way to put it. Takeaways, right? We want to make sure we audit our strategy. A, have a strategy. B, audit it, right? C, pick one area, because you've named off a dozen different things that a dealer could do, right? Pick one, get good at it. And I think most importantly, what I just took away from what you just said was align your digital efforts with your sales goals, right? Is what we're doing, what we're trying to end up with at the end of the day. So if it's to sell more units, if it's to make more margin, if it's to get more leads, right? Do we have what we need to achieve that? Anything I missed there that you would add?
I would just at a very simple level look at your sold data, right? Because this is the one commonality that every dealer shares. They're always looking at what they rolled. Okay. So look at your sold data and start to track backwards, meaning, okay, I'm looking at 100 solds for the month. What percentage of these came from digital efforts that I can track backwards, right? You know that they all went through the Lemco 9 steps there, right? That they all ended with an F&I close. But before that, when we were doing the write-up, did we document that this customer saw us on Google, or they caught that social media post that my marketing person put out there? Did they see us on motohunt.com's, inventory listing? Were they an internet lead or a phone call? And so if you start to kind of work backwards from the data that you already look at every single day, every hour of the day, because that's how you make your income, track it backwards from there. Now, here's the kicker. I'll give you the kicker, right? Now, the dealers who do it the best, they're running at 50 to 60%. So half or over half of all of their sold deals were coming from internet originated sourcing.
That's wild. That is wild. And it's a great way to do it. I love the approach. I want to open it up before we, in respect to everybody's time, Q&A. Who's got questions? And especially for Jacob, right? Because he's here. He's with us now. He's brought a plethora of information to us. And I want to thank him immensely for being here. But what do we got? Well, we got him for a few more minutes. We got his contact info up there. If you have questions about anything he said, listen to his podcast, reach out and check out his website, because I think it's a pretty cool piece for a lot of you. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, Dealership Fix It. We're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and we try to put out a lot of good content on there. And then by the way, I did mention that I have a few downloads, like how to do this or how to do that. I do create those from time to time. If you want to email me at jacob@motohunt.com, say, hey, you said this or that, or do you have a way for this or that? It's just a simple PDF that I'll send back to you.
that is awesome. That's awesome. Clayton, do we got anybody hanging out in the chat? Any questions? No questions?
Did I put everybody to sleep?
I don't know, man.
It's your soothing voice, Jacob. It's the low resonance.
I just thought it was my super nerdy internet talk, digital talk. Sorry.
No, this was great. I just dropped our URL in the chat. By the way, seeing many of you return, which is fantastic. Shout out to Chris and who else? Natalie. Thanks for joining again. Someone did drop a Q&A.
There you go. Awesome.
Here we go. All right, Jacob, what is your opinion on texting and email campaigns?
You should be doing it at a rapid rate. I will warn you, though, that texting specifically, I would advise you do it from a platform that allows for opt-out. That's kind of the law these days. People are getting a little sensitive over getting unsolicited text messages, and there could be some fines. Most dealerships, they just kind of have their sales guys do it from their own phones. That's A, not trackable or productive, and B, you could be in some hot water if somebody tries to opt out and it's with a personal cell phone that your sales guy is chatting with a customer on, right? But yes, do it. After the phone. Here's my priority, I think, was the answer. After you attempt a phone call, if you have a phone number, of course, call back again because they don't always answer on the first time. So we call that a double tap. And if they don't answer on the second time, then you text them and then you email them. And then you do it all again the next day if this is a brand new lead that we're talking about. The one and done
Great
stuff
answer.
is not going to work, guys.
Great answer. Looks like that is what we have. So Jacob, again, thank you very much for coming on the webcast with us. Everybody that came in the room, I appreciate you very much. And we will see everybody in a couple of weeks.
Sandy, thank you guys. Good luck out there.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jacob.
Still guessing what to pay on a used bike? Still holding aged units that just won't move? It's time for a real system. Moto Hunt's ultimate used inventory playbook shows how the best dealers are finding better inventory, pricing trades right, and turning used bikes faster with fewer mistakes and more margin. It's short, real, and free to download right now. Visit dealers.motohunt.com to grab your copy or check for the link in the notes.